Alright, all you cats and kittens, let's see if this works. Hey, that works. Where are we? Looks like we have 15. Oh my god, we went down. How did we lose 2 people? We're down to 15 people. That's fine. Not a big deal. Everyone can watch this later. Let's see how many people are actually watching this stuff later. Yeah, we'll turn it down a little bit. There we go. We'll just let it cruise in the background for a little bit. Is my mic picking up? There we go. Alright. Does that even help? There we go. Alright. Let's see. What is the plan for today? I believe we are picking up with... is this one? Let's try that. There we go. I think that we are picking up with finishing up lesson 12 and then stream finishing up lesson 12 and starting 13, finish L12 and start L13. Alright, for just a quick recap, Mr. Mr. DeRusi, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am. What's
okay.
up?
Do you want to sum up your
The frequently asked
announcement?
questions. Yeah, these were just responses to a couple questions we've been seeing in the form submission, in the question submission. Basically, you should be able to watch the stream no matter what. It doesn't matter if you're in a Google account or not. So we had a couple people saying their G Suite is not activated. I'm not really sure what that means fully, but you can just log into personal email addresses. They're not watching this video right now, possibly because they don't know how, but um, hopefully they can just see that they can just click on the links and it doesn't matter. And then in terms of the explore task, there were a couple questions there. Think of it as a long-term project. You should start working on it now. That's a big thing. And then it's really just reiterating what the instructions are saying. You should pick your topic. Selecting a topic, we can't really help you on that, but if you have, a question about whether a topic is good or not, we could help you with that possibly. But we're not going to give you a list of topics specifically. And then the computational artifact can really be anything. Images, graphics, video, audio are all technically allowed. So I think that covers those FAQs. Really read the instructions. Really read the instructions is all I would say for now.
Yeah, and all the links to all that here in the shared folder. The instructions have a few more things than the rubric. Things it doesn't mention in the rubric, but it does mention in the instructions about sources, explore performance task. Where does it say? Your references, excuse me. It says at least 2 of the sources must have been created after the end of the previous academic year. That's another way of saying a less than 1 year old source, or I guess less than 10-month-old source. It's the key is that you're choosing a topic that has recent events or recent advances or changes, so that it's actually a innovation. We can't call the microprocessor an innovation, even though it is an innovation. It's not a recent one. So pick a good topic.
But there are recent innovations on the microprocessor with the size of the architecture and whatnot. But we digress. Some people were asking if we could turn mics up. I don't know if my mic is the one they're asking about, or both mics, or yours specifically, but maybe boost that gain a little.
Yep. Okay, so I've got yours up a little bit and mine up a little bit. Do we have... Does that... Any, is that volume a little better? Chat? Oh yeah, we're on like I think we got it down to like 10-second delay, but yeah. Eric, is that any better? You seem to be active in chat. That's good. Still quiet. Um, let's try turn that up, and I suppose you're the only thing in my desktop audio. Let's turn that up. I suppose I could turn you up in the Discords. Let's try that. All right, well, let's go ahead and uh, go ahead. The plan was finish up lesson 12, which really only had one or two things. Oh, before I forget, anybody who is one of my students, Mr. Holt's students, go back to your original Google Classroom, and there's an assignment here called check-in. All you need to do, wow, we already have people that have done it. Awesome. All you need to do is create a new blank document with your name on it and attach it and hit submit. It's just a way to make sure that you have, made contact and you're checking in. We don't have due dates for assessments yet, but it's looking like it's going to be probably all of Unit 5 in quarter 3, and then the two performance tasks will likely be the sum total of the fourth quarter, and possibly a few things after that because of the way dates work and school works. I don't know. It's kind of pointless to plan that far out in advance. So
I think something just to be clear on, since we do have people that are taking the AP and not taking the AP, everyone still has to do the explore and create tasks. And the people that are doing the AP will submit those for AP and as a class grade. That way you're not going to have no work for fourth marking period. So it's going to kind of, I guess, double dip, I guess you will say. But also people not taking the AP still have to do the create and explore task because it's part of, that's going to be our fourth marking period grade.
yes, what he said. All right, so let's see if we can get through this pretty quickly. Wrapping up lesson 12 was some more loops and simulations. I think, did we make it through bubble 9 last time? Bubble 9 was change the conditional while loop while the streak is less than. It's just changing the conditional for the loop to be a streak rather than a total number of flips. Not that hard. Just say it out in English. Okay. While heads count, well, you're making your own variable names and started giving them a starting value and the conditions for resetting it. And so long as the heads count is less than, well, I think this is actually the answer for 10 because they're all linked. That is unfortunate that you can, you finish 10 and you want to go see what you did for 7, but the code will be everything that you just did because they're linked, which overall is a good thing, but you can't see. Well, I suppose you could go to version history from a few minutes ago if you wanted to, but basic idea for loops, it's do until, or so long as, while this condition is true, do it. If it's as soon as it becomes not true, break out of the loop and do the next thing and keep going. All right, not terribly difficult. Compare results, simulate the second hypothesis. We're not really doing the whole hypothesis. Keep experimenting. Yeah, so play around with that. It's all helpful. All right, so lesson 13 is about arrays, also known as lists. In JavaScript, we call them arrays. I'm not sure if they are, if they have a different name for in other programming languages, but it is a super powerful way of keeping track and manipulating and organizing information and all sorts of information. And let's watch their video together, and we'll see if it leaves it short.
My name is Brendan Reville. I'm from Australia and I learned to program when I was 10 years old. Since then I've worked on the Xbox team, and now here at code.org I've helped build some of the Hour of Code tutorials that I know a lot of people have enjoyed.
Whether you're planning out your day, brainstorming ideas for a project, or choosing songs for a party, you'll probably want to make a list. Lists help us stay organized by ordering all the relevant pieces of information one after the other in a single place. The same principle applies when we write programs that include many pieces of related information. Variables are useful for holding a single piece of information, but as we collect more information, keeping the variables organized can be complicated and cumbersome. For example, what if you wanted to keep track of everybody's name in class or an entire school? It's impractical to create hundreds or thousands of individual variables, and impossible if you don't know how many items should be tracked ahead of time. In programming, a list is a container used to keep similar pieces of data organized in one place. You can think of it like a container that grows or shrinks to fit the number of items it has inside. The main items you can do to a list are add or replace items, access items, and remove items. In JavaScript, a list is called an array. You may hear list or array used interchangeably, but we'll refer to it as a list to keep it simple. A basic example of a list would be all your contacts, on your phone, in your email, etc. Let's see how this would work. To start off, you need to create a list. You do this by using square brackets. An empty list looks like this. You can also create a list with some initial values in it. Just write out the values, separated by commas, inside the square brackets. For example, you could make a list of numbers like this, or a list of names, as in a contact list, like this. Just like how you can assign a number or a string to a variable, like var x gets 5, you can also assign a list to a variable to use it later, like this. You can think of a list as a container of numbered slots. Each slot can have one value in it.
All right, so here is a unnecessarily complicated situation for arrays. The first item in an array is index 0. It is in the 0th place. Now, the reason is because binary you start counting at 0. In computer science, you start counting at 0. It's just one of those things that you have to get used to. It is what it is. And that will become, hopefully, second nature. So, the part we're going to get through, hopefully we will get through bubble 15. We do need to stop at noon because of reasons, but we are going to try and get through 15 today. And the first few, all the way up to there, it's just about learning the basics of arrays, learning how to add items, remove items, access items, use them, move them around, that sort of thing. And we're pretty much going to be only using numbers for the items in the list, but an array can hold, like they showed, it can hold strings, words in quotes, or could be numbers in quotes. It could hold other arrays. It could hold objects. We haven't even talked about objects yet. But either way, it's just a list of anything that you can access by its location in that list. Okay, so let's see here. These are all the same. Bubble 3, create an array. Arrays have many features, different from variables, but they are pretty much going to be treated or referred to as variables. You actually, when you make an array, whatever you call it, numbers array, it's going to start out with you are initializing a global variable. That variable is your array, or the array is the variable. Arrays, give them good names. Use camel case. Start with a lowercase number. Lowercase letter. And here, what do we need? create an array that contains even numbers 0 to 10. So starting with 0, we'll go 0 to 4, 6, 8, and 10. You get the gist of it. And we are going to console log the variable, which we want to console log this list or this array in the in the debug console. And again, it acts like a variable. We don't use quotes. We are just writing the name of the variable, and if we run it, it's going to print to the debug console the array. And if you click on the drop down, you can see the item in what the term we use is index. Index is its place in the list. Okay, index 0 is the first item in the list, and in this case, index 0 is the number 0. In index 1 is the number 2, and index 2 is the number 4, and index 3. So there are 4 items in this, but the last item is in index 3. You will see length -1 to refer to this later on, but for now, we just need to get over the fact that we're counting from 0. Okay, we want to be able to add a number or add an item, add anything to our list, and we're going to use the append item tool or append item command in AppLab. For real JavaScript, you'll see things like the name of the array. We'll just call it array. Array.push, array.splice, array.pop. These are all functions to manipulate, add things, take things away, move things around in an array. But for us, we are just going to be using append, remove, and insert. And in this case, read the documentation append item. Okay, so documentation is hold your mouse over the thing, over the block, you get the information, and you can do C examples. This is a great way to learn all of the other blocks that we don't cover. When you get to the point where you are creating your own app, there are a lot of blocks that we won't actually be using in AppLab that can help you bring your idea to life. So we're going to create an empty array called odd numbers. So when you initialize an array, you can create it empty, and then your program would add items to it. And the reason why you know it's an array is the square brackets. Okay, curly brackets are used for other things. They're used for objects and for functions, but in this case, an array is square brackets. That's how you know. And we want to append item to the to our list 1 through 11, and our goal is to have them come out in order. So we are going to just do this. Let's see, 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, 11, and we'll just switch these 1, 3, 5. Oh, the only one I didn't need to change, 9 and 11. And if we then console log out our list, you'll see we now have a list with 6 items in it, all of the odd numbers, and you can see that again the first item is at index 0 and its value is 1, and then so on. Okay, so append item adds to the end. If we did this in a different order, if we put this one first and then ran it, you could see the first item is the number 11. So append just adds to the end. That's all you need to know. That is super useful. It's probably the most common one you'll see, but that's all. Let's watch this one now.
To access an individual item from your list, write out the name of the list and the number of the slot you want to access, like this. This means give me the item in the list names sitting in slot number 2. The official term for slot number is index, so we would read names, left bracket, 2, right bracket, as names at index 2. You might have noticed that the first index in the list is 0. In programming, we usually start counting at 0, which means that names at index 0 is the first item of the list, and names at index 2 is actually the third item in the list. When your program runs, the computer will look up the current value that lives at the given index of the list, just like the computer looks up the current value of a variable. For example, if you have a list of numbers called numList, you can create an expression like this. var sum gets numList at index 2 plus numList at index 5. The value stored in index 2 is 40, and the value stored at index 5 is 60, so the variable sum is assigned the value 100.
Okay, so the point of this is that each of the items in the list are treated like their own variable, which you refer to as its the name of the array and then the index, and this is how you are accessing them. We want to console log. Do we need to put it below to display the first item, last item? Okay. In this case, let's see here. Let's console log. The name of the array is my array, and we don't want the list, or we don't want a string. We want the variable, but we want its index. The first item in the array is index 0. Let's get rid of this. I don't think we need that. Okay, we want the last item and the number 5. Okay, so if we have we have 10 items, the last item is in index 9, because its length minus 1 is the name of that index. Again, we just need to deal with that. This slot is index 9 because we're starting from 0, and we also want whichever one 5 is in. So 5, 1, 2, 0, 1. Again, counting from 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's going to be at index 4. And our goal is to the first thing, the last thing, and the number 5. And there is an easier way to do this. We'll talk about it later, where it's like, can you do length in this? Length minus 1, and it should turn out the same. No, we'll talk about my array. Oh wait, hold on. I'm getting distracted. We need to press on. Womp womp. Okay, let's put it back the way it was. We'll teach other things later. Sweet. And let's clean off this. Getting comfortable using array indices. And do this. Starter code provided my numbers. And use console log to write the content to my numbers screen. My numbers index. In order from largest to smallest. Here they actually want you to go through and do a console log for each one, where you can figure out which index is the smallest and then keep going, which is tedious. And if something is tedious, that means there's probably an easier way to do that, but you will not learn it here. So the smallest number is my numbers index 0. Index 1 is the smallest one. That is has the value of 2. Okay. My numbers index 1 has the value of 2. The next smallest number is the first item in the list, so that's going to be index 0. And the next smallest is the last one, which 1, 2, 3, there are 5 items, so the last item. I don't know why they used numbers that are the same value as their spot in line. They could have used much larger numbers. The next one is this one, and that's the third item on the list, so it's index 2. And the last one is 1, 2, 3 index. It's the fourth item of the list, so it's index 3. And these should be in order. Perfect.
You can also assign or update a particular index's value. You refer to the slot the same way. Names at index 0 gets the value Sarah would replace the current value at index 0, just like assigning a new value to a variable. Once you have created a list, you can modify it by adding items, removing items, or inserting items. To add an item to a list, you can use the append item function. Let's add Kelly to the end of the list of names like this. Append item names Kelly. Notice that append item is a function that accepts 2 parameters, the list name and the actual value that you want to add. Appending an item always adds the value to the end of the list. To remove an item, you use, wait for it, the remove item function. If we want to remove Josh from the list of names, we'd need to know the index where Josh is stored, so we could do this. Remove item names 1. When you remove items, the whole list shrinks and it closes the gap of the item that was removed. Now our list has 4 items, indexed 0 through 3. Because the list shrank, items that come after the removal point are effectively re-indexed. So if we once knew that Kelly was stored at index 4, Kelly is now at index 3. This is not a problem, but something to be mindful of. We can also insert items into the middle of the list with insert item, like this. Insert item, names, to Brooke. The insert item function needs 3 parameters: the name of the list, the index you want the new item to appear at, and the value to insert. Inserting an item grows the size of the list. Similar to remove item, the items in the list that come after the insertion point will be re-indexed. Because indexes are just numbers, you can put anything in between the square brackets that evaluates to a number, like variables or even arithmetic expressions. For example, let's say we're keeping track of temperature readings in a location with a variable called loc. Var loc gets 3. We can change the value in numList at index loc like this. NumList at loc gets 1.
Okay, so this last example was actually 2 things, and let's see if we can break it down real. All right, so he's actually doing 2 things here. One is the other choices that you had were append item and remove item and insert item. Those are all manipulating the number of items or their index. When you can just replace, you can switch the value of a particular item in a list by using the assigning instrument, just like in a regular variable. But in this case, it's also using a variable that has a numeric value for the index, which I don't know if he's explaining that we're doing 2 things there, but let's keep going. And so what do we have to do here? Let's start over. Okay, so setting values by index. This is that example of replacing values where, okay, so our array is called array of bits, and all we need to do is reassign it, array of bits, index. So we want to switch all these to 0. So the index, the first item in this list, the 4th, and the 5, 6, 7, 9th item in the list all need to be switched to 0. So we'll do the first item is index 0 gets 0. And we need the 4th item in the list, which is index 3. And the, what do we say, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th item on the list, which is index 8, all are 0, and then we're going to console log that list so that they are all 0. All right. And continuing on. Okay, array, because the value of a particular item in the list, that's not what we're looking for, let's go with that. Because the value of a particular item in a list can be a number, using the name of the list and its index is the same as using whatever that number is. Or you can use it that way. In this case, we are adding a variable to the program to hold the sum. So we need a new variable. We'll call it var. Oh wait, we can add it down here. Doesn't really matter. Var num sum, and that new variable is going to get the sum of, no, what do I add a new variable, assign a variable, sum of all 3 variables. So the 3 items in the list are my numbers index 0 plus my numbers index 1 plus my numbers index 2, and we also want to console log numSum. Obviously you can name your variables whatever you want. So we should be able to get, yes, 8, 3, and 7, 18. How did I get the exact same one twice? That's unbelievable. 8, 6, 9, 6, 6. Okay, so you can see here we are creating 3 random numbers and then totaling up whatever those 3 random numbers are. There you go. That's a thing. Bubble 11, let's see here. What do we need? We need to, this is more reassigning, and what we need is we're coming up with random numbers. The variable, or excuse me, the list, my numbers, is an array. It's initialized as an empty array that just sort of locks in what it can be, and we are adding 3 random numbers. And if we run it, you can see it's the same as before, the random numbers. But what we want to do is for each one, add 1 to it, which, so let's see here, my numbers. My numbers index 0 gets, and we could do it the other way also, gets whatever it was plus 1. Okay, if you remember from the way things work, we are, when you have the variable but you're not reinitializing it, you're not using var, we already have var index 0 by creating this. What we are doing is now we are reassigning my numbers, the first thing in the list of my numbers, to whatever it was before plus 1, and we need to do that for all 3 of the items, the three random numbers that we've created there. And if you remember from last time, I think you can do plus plus. Does AppLab let you do plus plus? Does it say that? Yeah, plus plus. Okay, so where are we here? My numbers index 1 plus plus. Okay, even though this is a long stretch of characters and brackets and numbers, it still all equates to whatever is in that slot, and plus plus means just add 1. And let's not do that. Let's copy that and do the same thing for index 2, which is the 3rd item in the list. And what should come out is whatever the random number is plus 1, which should be, did it work? Yeah, there we go. Okay, so we're just adding 1 to each of the items in the list. And this is the long form way. We'll get to loops that will let you do this to a list of however many items are in the list. And obviously this feels kind of tedious if you're just doing it for all of the items, and that's where loops come in later. All right, so we need a we're going to create a sentence that has these words are going to be stored as strings. Remember, in quotes is a string, and they are all going to be items in our list, which it's going to come out as a sentence, but we need to create a new variable, which we now have a variable, excuse me, a new array. We have an array block, although you don't really need it. It's just creating a new variable, var list. Well, come on, type var full sentence equals empty array. Okay, and now we can append item to the name of our array is full sentence or full sent, and we are going to start. First thing is going to be the first word in the sentence, and remember, append just adds to the end. This is an array, and then we can array, and we can console log that array, which is called full sent. And if we console log that, we should get an array of 4 items that came out in the order that we did it. I can't think of a reason why you would have an array of words that are designed to be read out in order in a sentence that I don't know what point they're proving, other than you can store strings in the array and access them the same way. You could, like if you console logged full sentence index 3, let's do index 2, and if we ran that, it should just be an, okay? Because the third item, or index 2, is the string an. So it's just another accessing them. There's really no reason to write out a full sentence. Insert item. Okay, so insert item just puts the whatever you insert into that list at a particular location. So it takes all three parameters, all three arguments. Okay, so we'll just do one. We want to insert item. The name of the list is called sentence. Today, what do we want? I want to, we'll just add, we're gonna put play, the word play, into, let's see, we are at index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3, index 4. We're gonna put it in index 4, and if we run that, it puts it in index 4. We are console logging the array, which is right here. I wonder why. Oh, because it's in a concatenation. We are console logging this string plus this variable, which, even though this variable is an array of strings, there's some computer science, hopefully you understood. It prints it out this way as opposed to as an array, where if we just console logged the array, it would print it out in array form. So that's a thing. Just a couple more minutes and we'll get through this. Bubble 14. Sometimes we want to remove an item. We want to remove all of the items that have the word remove. So we are going to do remove item. Now the problem is that when we remove something, everything gets a new slot. So we want to remove item from the list called sentence from there, and if we printed that, it would get rid of the first one. But if we now did the same thing, let's remove, this is index 0, index 1, index 2, index 3. If we removed the item at 0 and at index 3, which should remove this item and this item, if we do that, it's not going to work, because you can see here that as soon as we remove this one from index 0, this becomes index 3. So we removed the word remove 0, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, we removed the word excited instead of the word remove. So that's the point of this bubble. The way you would have to do it, you actually either have to figure out, so we remove index 0, then this becomes index 2, and after we remove that, this becomes index 2, 3, 4, this becomes 5. Then this would become 5 once we remove this, so we would need to remove 5 again, or you could work through it backwards and it wouldn't change the things before it. So this is 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. We'll remove index 8, then remove index 7, and you can see we got rid of those last two removes. So if you work backwards, it doesn't change anything before it. That's just another tip. And there's another for loop for splicing or popping. No, it would be splice. removing items from a list without checking an entire list for some characteristic and then removing those items. This is a real situation that rearranging its place in the list is important to be aware of. And bubble 15, out of bounds. Okay, so here are some literally edge cases of arrays where your goal is just to see what happens. So for each of these different situations, they've given you an let's see. So this is an insert. They want you to insert an item into the array called myArray. We're starting with an array called myArray with 3 items, 10, 20, 30. They want to insert an item into the list called myArray, and they want you to insert it into location -1, and they want to insert the value 0. So if we run that, you can see everything else is commented out. Where we have our array, we want to insert an item into that array at location -1, which there is no location -1, but let's see what happens. Okay, it puts the value 0 here. Okay, so that's something you would never do, but let's see what happens. What happens if we insert an item at location 1000 and we insert the value 40? Let's see what happens if we run that. Okay, so it just puts it at the end. Okay, it's not going to create 996 blank locations in the list and then put 40 at the 1000th location, or actually the 1001st, but that's okay. That's just a thing that happens if you are attempting to put it in a location that doesn't exist. It just puts it at the end. Let's see what happens if we reassign the location -1 to the value 0. It does nothing because there is no. So these are weird, strange. These are essentially typos. You would never try to assign the location. There's no location -1. And in this one, if we try to assign the location 1000, it breaks it. And if we try to, this one is reassigning the location. Well, it's trying to reassign the 4th item in the list. This is index 0, index 1, index 2. The next one would be index 3. What happens if we try to assign a location that doesn't exist? It's the same thing as append. So these are strange situations that you wouldn't really have. So for next time, go ahead and do all that and attempt the remainder of lesson 3, starting with bubble 16. And if there are any questions, we can work on that. Are there any questions from Mr. Drusi? Do you see any questions pop up?
I think we've gotten most of them as we were going through. I think if you have just a couple of seconds,
Yes.
tomorrow,
next time
are we
is
meeting tomorrow?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
As far as I know, I'll let you. Like every time, I'll put up the stream time at some point tonight. We've been pretty consistent though.
There are some questions in the document, some debugging questions. Most of the questions that people have been submitting, I kind of wrote the FAQ for. But there are a few debug questions from lesson 12, lesson 11, and then one from today as well. But I think the not a number, the NaN, I think you fixed that yourself, so I don't think we need to. Do you got time to go over a couple debugs?
Sure. How do I get to that item? It's probably over here. Let's do this over here. Shared with me. I don't. Well, first of all, folks who are... Oh, never mind, that's fine. Never mind. Explored with me, shared with me, Chris pretend, nope. Mr. DeRusi, where do I find that item? Mr. DeRusi.
See if you can access it. I just sent you a link on Discord.
Let's see here. Is a message in Discord or... Can you email it to me? Or try again on the message?
Where is it? It's in a folder, right?
I thought so.
I think it's in our co-video teaching folder.
Oh, yeah, that's probably where it is. Let's take a look at there.
Yeah, form response. Yep, there it is. So it's APCSP.
You have the things listed. Okay, so this is as far as we made it. Lesson 12, Bubble 8. Let's take a look at this. And view code. And what happens here? Okay, so the question is this one, lesson 12, bubble 8. I have a head streak counter set to return to 0 in the case that it's a tail. It's rolled, but it's not returning to 0. Okay, counter, count number heads, value, random number. Okay, value gets the value of random number 1. Counter goes up by 1. Current flip equals value. You could probably turn that into one variable, but that's fine. Actually, let's go ahead and do that. I would say, let's go ahead and say current flip. Oh, wait, hold on. Why am I need to remix. That's why. You initializing out, because you're resetting it every time and only using it in the while loop, we can get rid of a lot of global variables. Let's just put current flip as a random number. This is not solving your problem, but it's just simplifying. And we do need to initialize it since we're putting it inside of the loop. Our current flip is random number. We don't need value. Okay, while head streak is less than 12, current flip is random number count. If current flip is equal to 1, count head streak, or count num heads. Why are we using count num heads and head streak? Count number tails. Is that what this bubble's asking? To count both? Well, here's how you can check some things. Head streak. Well, let's actually write out head streak and see what happens. Well, also, let's switch everything to console log so that we can actually read it. And let's console log this. And do we have any other rights that we're using? No. And we'll run it, and while... Okay, so the odds of getting 12 in a row are very small. That could be an issue. This seems to be breaking itself. Let's just try till we get 3 in a row. Okay, so it took 35 tries to get 3 in a row. Maybe that was the problem. Maybe you're breaking your computer or breaking Chrome by trying to get 12. Think about the odds of getting 12 heads in a row. It's 0.5 to the 12th? I don't know, math. It's difficult. Alright, lesson 11, bubble 13. View code. Let's take a look here. What was our goal for this? Left on 11, bubble 13. What is... Let's make sure everything's still working. What is the problem with code being weird? Makes it look like... So, okay, let's see what we got here. Alright, so variable die1, random console log, rolled a die1, and a die2 for a total of die1 plus die2. Good. While die1 plus die2 is not 7. Okay, so this is the, needs to be the and. I don't think I can change this. I can remix. Needs to change this to and because even if, so our goal is to keep going until you roll a 7 or 11, and if you rolled 11, it's also, even if you rolled an 11, it's an 11 is not a 7, which means keep going. So 7 or 11 means stop when neither of these are true. And because we want either one, even if we get one of the ones we want, it is still not the other one, and it should keep going. Yeah, there we go. Or it would keep going even though we don't want it to. So this is a weird conversation with, or a weird comparison with nots and ands. Just trying to make things difficult is what they're doing here, which, okay, that's good, I guess. And do we have any other links? Code, I'm trying to get a favorite things app. Is this later on? Favorite things app? Yeah. Okay, so this is later on in 13. We will deal with this next time. I really have to go 8 minutes ago. Okay, so Mr. DeRusi, do you have anything else to add?
I think that's it.
Okay, let's go ahead and we'll finish up 13 for tomorrow and submit questions, or submit questions like this about any part of 13, and we'll deal with it tomorrow. All right, see you guys then.
Bye.